Hello everybody, this is Fernando with a special edition Aliens and UFOs video. Bit of a bad news folks when it comes to the world of aliens and UFOs because a pioneer within that subject, a man by the name of Art Bell, has just passed away. Yes indeed, it looks like he just passed away the other day, and so I wanted to go ahead and make a video dedicated to him, at least with regards to my perspective, like how I was introduced to him, what he means to me, how he influenced me, because I'm sure a lot of this also has to do with yourselves and then other fans out there of the paranormal, the ghosts and spirits, the aliens and UFOs world, the cryptid stuff, everything that he talked about within his very famous show. So let's go ahead and let's share this video together, and then that way afterward, if you wanted to post any comments, anything else related to how he felt, like how he influenced your world, how you felt about him, then it'd be great to hear and see that information too. All right, everybody, so let's go ahead and let's start this dedication video now to Art Bell. So who of course was Art Bell? Well, those of you that have been long-time listeners, especially with regards to anything involving ghosts and spirits, aliens and UFOs, cryptids and monsters, pretty much in most of the subjects that I talk about here on my videos, you're probably familiar with him already. If not, I'll just provide a brief precursor to who he was. There's a lot more information out there in terms of his life, in terms of how he started, what channels he was on, specifically like in terms of his radio stations, stuff like that. I'm sure there's a lot more better places that have more detailed information on it. This video is more about how he influenced me and how he related to me. But still, he started off as a broadcaster early on in his life. This was a guy who pretty much was a pioneer of many items when it came to the world of radio, and then other items that I felt he was a pioneer of too. Most importantly, though, it comes to the world of radio. Like, he was someone that put radio on the spot at his apex, like at his very, very broadest, most successful time period. His nighttime show was boasting about 15 million viewers. That's amazing. 15 million viewers in a world where it was over 500 radio stations that claimed to have his show. Absolutely phenomenal stuff. Imagine that, 15 million people listening in on his show on a nightly basis. So he was absolutely a pioneer of having a great radio show, a nighttime one as well, coast to coast AM, of course, that one being something that was held overnight. That show introduced me to late night radio. I love listening to radio from him because this was a show that I would stay up late, and I would be able to hear a lot of subjects that I was introduced to him too. So he introduced me to radio. He introduced me to AM radio specifically because so many of his shows were there, like his show was on AM stations specifically, which in turn introduced me to other types of AM shows like talk shows, political shows, other stuff that to this day I very much enjoy listening to. But then also, of course, he was a pioneer of talking about mostly subjects that would normally be ridiculed. This was a guy who during a time period when lots of people were just on the radio talking about hokey stuff, like let's say latest celebrity gossip, or stuff related to the music world, stuff like that, which is fine. I mean, if people like that sort of stuff, that's their deal. But in this, with regards to him, he was more someone that wanted to talk about, let's say, the stuff that normally would be taboo, almost forbidden, and that's the stuff I was mentioning earlier. Like anybody that wanted to talk about ghosts or spirits, that was going to be something that was going to be like almost ridiculed at that time. But no, he introduced that world. He brought on guests. He would bring these people on that were experts in their field. They would give their opinions. He would host an open talk show to them, and then allow them to present their view, and then he would present his view, and then in turn bring in callers, and then he would open this to everything else too. His most famous taboo or forbidden subject, of course, was aliens and UFOs. This was a subject matter. I think it's difficult to say when I first started listening to him, but the world of aliens and UFOs is what I first learned of from his show. Like, I remember there was specifically some shows that were dedicated to people calling in about their experiences whenever they saw UFOs out there. let's say in the skies, or others who were claiming to be abductees of aliens as well, or others who apparently were like being followed by the infamous Men in Black, or people that were working within certain government sectors that dealt with aliens, all that kind of stuff. It was just so amazingly fascinating. Like this was the stuff again that for all intents and purposes is ridiculed elsewhere, but he absolutely pioneered it. Like he made it subject. He made it something that was open, and that way it could be talked about on a nightly basis and everybody could listen in to do so. Another thing that I felt he was a huge pioneer on was the forecast of podcast, the format of it, because again this was something where he was talking about any subject whatsoever. In fact, I was reading that at a time when it was considered more influential to talk about politics or to talk about more local stuff happening, let's say within the government or within the state that the people were in. No, he decided to broaden and then talk about more open stuff, and that's included, like I was mentioning earlier, bringing all these subjects in and then inviting people. And so in the terms of podcasts, especially with the people he brought in during that time, and I think even to this day in the world of radio, only a very limited set of guests are brought on. Like it's almost like you have to like field these guests, that you can't just bring anybody on, especially on a major show. But in his case, he was more than open to have anybody brought on. So it kind of like influenced today's world of podcasts, especially on the internet, because that world today, I mean, anybody can bring up their own podcast and they invite anyone they want to talk about their respective fields. Such was the same case in his world, but that was a time, of course, when there was a completely different world. It was someplace where you had to have a specific set of guests that were almost like making the rounds throughout the radio world, which if you don't know is actually still kind of closed minded. I love following the world of radio. There's only a few radio companies that dominate the world, like in this case in the US especially, and in their world they are very restrictive when it comes to what kind of guests they have on. Like it almost like is like a cookie cutter checklist of stuff that people have to follow. But no, in this case Art Bell, he absolutely invited anyone. In some cases it was almost infamy because some of the guests were like so out there with what they were talking about. He was patiently making sure that he was listening to that. I remember some of the stuff that, like some of the shows where it was just shaking your head, like wondering what in the world are they talking about. But that was his deal. He absolutely wanted to invite anybody over, talk about it, leave it open for them to do so without ridiculing them, and then just leave it up to us to decide what's true, what's not, what's completely out there. And in other cases, some of the guests he invited, of course, he ended up banning afterward because of what they did. Like, let's say the far stuff that they were spewing, or some of the stuff where they in turn were not following the rules that he in turn was imposing. And then lastly, I felt that this guy Art Bell was also a huge pioneer of making things very, very exciting. Like if you listen to his show, and I highly recommend it to this day, there are still shows that people have updated entire shows, hours and hours of this stuff on YouTube. I love listening to this stuff whenever I'm driving throughout Texas. In fact, I pop on YouTube, I put on an Art Bell show, and I listen to it. He was a master of executing things like perfectly, like in terms of the slow draw, the build up, the anticipation, and then finally the reveal, the execution, and then the aftermath of it. Like he was someone that could tease having, let's say, a guest of a very popular subject come on. You'll know the guest is coming on, but he'll keep saying like, and he'll talk about this and he'll talk about that, and it's going to be really good, folks. You're going to love it. He has a very distinct voice too. Like you can just imagine him as he's talking about that specific stuff. But yes, he would mention that, and it would get you excited. You'd want to hear what the guest would have to say, and then finally, when he brings the guest on, and the guest talks about whatever, and then he in turn spends the next hour or so talking about it. Some cases, these shows were very long, hour or 2 hours plus. Then that's when it was perfectly just executed. But yes, he was an absolute master of it. The only person I know of who's even better when it comes to getting people excited about something is, of course, Stan Lee, Stan the Man Lee. If you've ever seen him in person like I have, let's say at a Comic-Con, when he's done Q&As, you'll know that the way he talks, he make anything sound like it's the next best thing. And then of course, once he moves on to another subject, he makes that sound as the next best thing. Forget about what he's just talking about. This is the next best thing. Such was the case was Art Bell, absolutely. So he was a pioneer of doing that and doing it very, very, very well. But yes, indeed, how he influenced me, at least when it came to this stuff. Again, when it comes to the worlds of aliens and UFOs and ghosts and spirits, that's how I was introduced to them. That's what got me very interested in the world, the whole universe of it, from the subjects he talked about to the ghost stories that people would say, to again the encounters that people had with aliens. I think he even introduced shadow people. Is that right? Like shadow people, the notion of them were around, but he introduced them. I guess I'll use that word again. Like he pioneered them in terms of bringing them out into the broad open. Like he was able to have people come aboard and share their experiences, and then it just grew from there. Like people, instead of hiding in a corner, almost humiliated of sharing it, were now able to do so, and that's how he introduced them. But I remember hearing about shadow people for the first time from him too. He also influenced me to this day, again, staying up late at nights, just listening to things, even to this day. Those of you that know me now on my channel know that I tend to post videos up very late at night. Like this video here, past midnight. I'm going to be posting it past 1 o'clock or so. I'm very much so a night owl. It all comes from him, because to this day, I love staying up at night. It's just my biggest time when I can focus on these things, is because back then, when I was listening to his show, that's when I was able to focus so much more attention on that too. I don't know exactly again when I started listening to his show. It's probably like the late 90s, maybe the early 2000s. It's difficult to tell because this was a guy who almost like retired and quit and then came back like 3 or 4 times, and throughout different shows as well. Coast to Coast AM is his most famous one, but he was able to work on other ones too. I think there's another one called Dark Matter that he worked on as well. But in any case, he was the one that influenced me staying up late at night too. And of course, everything else in the world of aliens and UFOs, all that stuff eventually led to my channel here, because I'm able to take those very same subjects that he talked about and then share them with everyone here. I don't do it like, let's say, like hour plus 2 hour long shows like he did on a nightly basis. My God, how can somebody do that? I have so much respect for someone to be able to just talk and keep talking for several hours a night for years on end, and not have it be repetitive, not have it be where it's something where it's like, oh God, when is he going to shut up? No, in this case, every single moment was something that was perfectly executed and exciting, just absolutely something that just kept you captivated throughout all the entire hours. So how he's able to do it, who knows, but it influenced me to be able to do this, to share this information with everyone. Of course, my first love being the cryptids and monsters that came from him. I think if I were to narrow down, the first cryptid he talked about was the chupacabra. That was the one that got me started when I was listening to his show. And then another subject that he was known for was, of course, Bigfoot as well. On the ghost side, I already mentioned the shadow people, but there was the annual Halloween ghost stories. Anybody remember those? That's when he would have on October 31st people that would call in and share the entire set of hours their ghost stories, and in that way he could invite everyone to be able to do so, and then give his thoughts on it too. So lots of great stuff. I love catching up on that too, again on YouTube every now and then. But yes, that's how he's influenced my channel, absolutely. To this day, just like him, I invite you guys and gals, to share what subjects you want me to talk about. That's why I do, to this day, all these suggestion videos, so that way I get to hear from you stuff that I've never heard of before, try to find information on it, share with everyone, introduce it to others that may not have heard it. This will be a great opportunity for them to hear it the first time, and then others that already have heard it, maybe you can hear another perspective, just like he did on his show, stuff that I would never have heard of on some of those subjects subjects. He introduced them to me, and then that's how it influenced me. Interesting, no? It's amazing how this world works. How whenever you have somebody that just is just doing something that they love, ends up influencing others years after with their work as well. Just so amazing. So, but yes, indeed. The only thing I think of when it comes to doing what he loves, and how that influenced me, is just continue to do what you do, and it's not work, because to him, after all these years, I mean, good Lord, he was doing this for several decades. When it comes to his radio show, he was still hitting it strong. He would quit, he would come back. He was almost like Michael Jordan, quitting 3 or 4 times and then coming back afterward. Now, in this case, this stuff couldn't get him down. There were time periods, though, where I was reading some information on him that he would have to quit due to family matters. But at the end of the day, this love of radio, this love of the subjects that he had, he just had to come back to it. So I was definitely influenced by that too, because just like this, you've seen some of my videos where I'm like, all right, this is like the last straw, especially with YouTube when it comes to what they do on certain things. I'm like, no, I'm gonna, give this a rest or give this a quitting period afterward. I can't, because this is the stuff that I love too, much like he did. Whenever you do that, it doesn't become work. It just becomes something that you're passionate about, and then that way you can share it with everyone too. So very much influential on that part too. So who knows what else he'll be able to influence me on afterward. One last thing too, I wanted to mention when it comes to the weird world of Art Bell, and this is no joke. So I haven't thought about him for a long time. And then just on Friday, out of the blue, I thought to myself, how weirdly, all of a sudden, let me see if I can catch up on some info on Art Bell, knowing, of course, no idea that there was going to be anything involving his death, like something along those lines. Like, it was just me deciding, let's go ahead and I'll just, find us some info related to him, just to try to catch up, see how things are going on. And then I left it at that. It was only afterward, later on, that I was looking through Newsstand, which I have here on my Google app, and that's when I noticed the information on Art Bell and his death. How crazy is that? Please tell me like someone else has experienced that before, where all of a sudden you're interested in reading about catching up on somebody you may not have caught up on in a while, and it's because all of a sudden they end up passing away afterward. Isn't that crazy? Like, this is absolutely crazy. I kid you not. That's what happened to me on Friday when I was looking up his info hours before he was due to die in this case, and then that was it. Like, that's when I read the news afterward about what occurred. Crazy, crazy, crazy world. If you want to know why he passed away too, it looks like he was just suffering from long time illness to the lungs. I think it's called COPD, whatever that stands for, because he was infamous for being a long time smoker. Like, this is a guy, almost every picture you've seen now, it shows him holding a cigarette, probably, a chain smoker for so long. So he ended up passing away at 72 years of age because of it. Quite a long time still, but unfortunately it's just due to complications from it because of his smoking, no doubt too. So, but what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on Art Bell? How did he influence your world? How does he continue to influence your world to this day? Anything of your love of certain subjects, anything in what you do, maybe as a hobby? Do you have anything like podcasts? Do you yourself write about this stuff? Did it come from him? Someone else posted on a comment that yes, no doubt he's already influenced so many people to this day, and probably everyone here that's listening to this show. So I would absolutely love to hear what your thoughts on Art Bell, and then see how he impacted your world when you were first introduced to him. That would be a great way to share that info too. Also, what kind of subjects you were first introduced to whenever you were hearing him. Great stuff. I wasn't there at the beginning when he first started, but I was definitely there, I guess, during his prime time, staying up late at night, and those are some good memories that I'm gonna have for a long time. Just those thoughts, just thinking back now, staying up so late past midnight and listening to my tiny cheap little AM radio, but there I was listening to him as he would continue with it. I mean, his show, Coast to Coast AM, when it was in its prime, when you heard that booming voice, that ominous voice, the west of the Rockies, east of the Rockies, you guys know what I'm talking about. And then also with that lightning, that thunder, when it would announce the segues into different parts of the show. Wow, it's good memories. Just brings me back to those good times when I was listening to it. So I'll definitely, next time I'm going on a trip here soon, I'll dedicate that trip to Art Bell by putting on some podcasts, some of his, some of the stuff that people posted on YouTube on there too. So that way I can listen to it for hours on end. But yes, indeed, I hope you enjoyed this dedication video to Art Bell. And again, I'd love to hear where your comments are, everyone, regarding how we influenced you. So, all right, everybody, thanks again as always. Take care.